Hey everyone, welcome to All About the Joy. This is Carmen Talk. Before I start talking about my subject today, I really want to encourage everyone to check out the live stream that we did this past Thursday. I did it from a remote location. I had to leave because of the fires here in Santa Monica, actually in the Palisades. Let me be very specific. I live in Santa Monica, and we had an evacuation order and warning. And so I did the live stream from there with Rick and Cynthia, and it was interesting to say the least. It was fun, actually, and it was nice to see them, even though I was very exhausted. And also my goddaughter, Juliana, makes a special appearance, which is kind of cool and fun for me. I just love that kid. I talk in the live stream about all of the hate. I also made a few different TikToks as I was updating family and friends about what was going on, how I got really sad and upset at so many of the comments that people were making because they hate California so much, which I have to say, I've been to almost every state in this country except for Idaho and Alaska. And I hope someday to go to Alaska for sure. But I don't think there is any state in the country that I have ever thought of as so painful and hate-filled to me that I would, just continuously diss it over and over and over again. The only one I can think of, and this is all because I was born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts, is we have this kind of kidding kind of sort of hate with New York because of our sports teams. But even that at the end of the day is unjust. And I will defend New York's honor any day of the week and twice on Sundays if I need to. But it just is quite an incredible thing to see and hear all of the hate that comes our way here in California. And it really hit me hard during this situation, this horrible disaster that we are dealing with still, even though my area is at least at the moment in the clear because the Santa Ana winds have died down a bit. And also because our fierce, amazing first responders, firemen, volunteers have been doing their due diligence to just get this under control. And I am just beside myself seeing the stories of all of the people who are working so hard to save lives, to try to save property, and to just get this fire under control. It is truly an incredible feat when you think about it. There are more than enough TikToks and Facebook posts and Instagram and Blue Sky. I've seen so many people talk about why California is so important to the rest of the country, right? We supply so much in terms of just our tax base to help other states that never contribute, that do not contribute, that cannot contribute to the amount that we do. But there's just so much more, right? Whether it's how much food we produce, whether it's just Hollywood and entertainment in general. It's just a massive, massive contribution to the United States of America. And without California, I really doubt heavily that the 49 other states, actually, New York would probably be fine. Massachusetts would probably be fine. But the rest of the states would have a bit of a struggle without California being the entity that it is. Besides the fact that I just think it's a wackadoodle thing to hate a state that most people who talk about it have never been to, or if they have been to it, they've been to one town, right? They've been to San Diego or they've been to like San Francisco, and that's how they base everything on this one visit for this one moment in time, and have decided that the entire state, because usually they don't like its politics or they claim to be Christian or whatever all the reasons are, have such a vitriol hate towards this state. It's just mind-boggling to me. I wanted to talk a little bit about why I love California so much, because I thought that would be an interesting take on it. And so let me back up and just say that when I was a little kid, like most everyone else, I watched TV a lot, and I really learned a lot of things about performing by watching some of the great TV shows and movies. And I remember when I was younger watching things like Soul Train, and I was like, ooh, I want to be one of the dancers on Soul Train, because I just thought they were amazing. And to me, they were like they were all adults. And in my head, I was like, when I'm an adult, I'm going to be a dancer on Soul Train. I think that was my first understanding of wanting to be kind of a dancer. Even though when I was like 4 or 5 years old, I was in this little dance group on, maybe I was a little bit older. Maybe I was 6 or 7. I don't remember. I was a young kid. And I remember being in a little dance troupe with Doña Felita. I've talked about this before. And I just remember loving performing then. And just, I don't know, the whole, that's in your blood. It just happens to you and you just love it and you just want to do it all the time. And very quickly I learned that I couldn't sing, right? Or I shouldn't say that I couldn't sing, but I was discouraged from singing really, really at a young age. And it's unfortunate because I was in the choir at church and they gave me a solo for whatever godforsaken reason they chose to. And I was so horrible that after that church service, they turned, did I do it during I don't even know if I made it to the church service. I think it was kind of in a rehearsal. And I guess I was so horrible that, they told me that I should just maybe go be in the band or something. And told me, you're not a singer. And I was told that as a really young kid, and it kept me away from ever trying to sing again, which is okay because I'm an amazing dancer and that's what I ended up doing. But I always remember that, right? But because of that, I always thought of myself as a dancer, a performer. I really got into being a choreographer. I wanted to then, because Soul Train was kind of that beginning when I was little watching it on TV, but then MTV and the music videos, Janet Jackson, Michael Jackson, all of them were just, I really thought that was where I was going to end up. And then I would become a choreographer and then I would find my way to what I thought, and I still believe today, is the gold star of being on Broadway, And even though I always loved the movies and television, when I was younger, I thought that was a harder thing for me to understand because I didn't see the structure of it. I didn't understand how a camera thing worked and I didn't understand how you would even get in there. But for me, the trajectory of being a performer and then, being a dancer and then finding my way maybe on Broadway, like in the chorus line. Honey, when I dream, this child's imagination is for real. Okay. I was blessed with the gift of movement and a great imagination. But I had that all set in my head and I still love all of that. And I don't think I'm far away from it. It's just a different trajectory. But inevitably, I always knew I would end up in a place where I loved the entertainment business. And suffice it to say, for those of you who've read my book, Canela, or for those of you who know me, that my ideas of dancing ended pretty much when I was 16, 17 years old because I had a really bad hip injury. And to me, that was the end of all of it. And I then had to focus on how I could get out of the area and neighborhood I lived in. And that's how college ended up becoming an option. And I am both grateful and pained by it all, but we are all given a set of something to deal with, right? The cards we've been dealt, and you do the best you can with what you have in front of you. And let me tell you, I have won more games than I have lost in this bout or this game of life, if that's what we're going to call it. So I try to always be grateful. But because of my ideas of performing and because I thought I would never make it on Broadway, because now I had a hip injury and my whole idea of being a choreographer or being on MTV or, whatever, all those things, I, changed the trajectory to someday being in California. Because I loved now Hollywood. I didn't know how or what I would do or how I would get there, but there was no doubt, especially in my freshman year in college, that I would end up in California, because the more I was in Vermont in snow, the more I realized I need to be in a place of warmth and a place where the entertainment business was part of its bloodline. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense. There was no question I would never go to Florida or any other place because of weather. But I needed that combination. And I had come out to California to I always want to say, it was Santa Clara. And for a brief moment in time, I came out to Santa Clara, California, and I just knew. I knew in that moment, and I was young at that point. I just knew that this is where I wanted to be. And I was excited. Wow, I'm thinking about those times. But anyways, I never had any doubt that when I graduated from college, I was going to go straight to California. It was in my head that the only way I would be able to stay away from where I grew up was if I made a huge change. And the only way I could do that if I just took the leap and moved to California. And that's exactly what I did. The first thing I noticed when I got here was the sunshine. And I don't want to just say it like, oh, it's so warm here. Yes, of course it is. But there is a difference in kind of the brightness of the sun to me here than anywhere else in the United States. I can't talk about anywhere else in the world because I've only been to a few different places outside of the United States. But I'm just saying that when I came here, the first thing I understood and realized was the warmth of the sun is so encompassing. And you don't have this kind of humidity issue at all. Like most people have been to Florida, so they understand that when you get off the plane, you just start with that dripping sweat at the back of your neck that goes down your spine. It doesn't happen here because we don't have humidity in that way. And so the sun is just a warmth that I absolutely love. I also came out here specifically. You land at LAX and you're literally on the west side when that happens. And wherever you take a taxi cab from at LAX, you're inevitably going to notice the ocean, but I specifically was going to stay on the west side. And so that's on the ocean side. And I remember the first place I went to in Santa Monica. Everyone knows that there is a bench there that belongs to me. It doesn't. It was dedicated by somebody else years and years and years ago, and the plaque is there. But for all intended purposes, that is my bench. And when I first landed here, that's where I found myself sitting and gazing out at probably one of the most beautiful views that I've definitely ever seen. And it just overlooks the ocean. And it also shows you on even a not so clear day, but on a clear day, it's like, mwah, chef's kiss, beautiful. The mountains north, which are currently what we're talking about, the Palisades, Malibu, you're going that way to Point Magoo. You can see the beauty of the mountains all the way through. And it's a gorgeous, gorgeous view. It's actually the same. I think I have it still on my Facebook header and even Blue Sky at this point. I have that viewpoint. I also see that every day now because I still live in this area and I actually live very close to that place. It's walkable to me and I try to do it on a regular basis as part of my workout. But my point is when you come to California, what you notice is not just the warmth, but there is this vibrant scenery that is so colorful. It's not just that all the houses are different, right? Because they're made architecturally different. The Spanish villas and the non-brick looking places because they don't use brick out here, right? Because of earthquakes. And so to me, there was just such a beauty to it. And it's so funny because the other day I was talking to a friend of mine who called to check to see how I was doing. And one of the things he said was, I just thought it wasn't that green out there. And it was one of the funniest things I've ever heard. But what he was referring to is that, California is a desert, but it's a desert in that the foliage is different here. He lives in Vermont, and so it's all pine cone, pine trees and oak trees and all of these other different types of I am not a gardening person or botanical, whatever that's called, but you can hear me out, right? I lived on the East Coast most of my life growing up. From being a youngster to young adulthood. And so the foliage is very different. So when you come out to Los Angeles, there is more browns and it's a beautiful kind of lighter brown. There's kind of sandy looking areas here because we're beach, and there's do you say cacti? I think you say some cacti. Not really a lot, but you do see it. But there's a lot of palm trees, of course, where I live. And there is a lot of green where I live as well, too, because we've had rain, not this year or not since like May or something, but we do have beautifulness in the greenery here. And it's just a different type of foliage. It's just a different type of environment. But it's gorgeous and it's beautiful here. And that's the other part of it. There's a brightness to California. And it's not just my area. I have gone up the coast. I have gone from San Diego all the way through where I live in Los Angeles and gone up PCH to the Palisades, Malibu. I've gone up to Santa Barbara. You can understand what I'm saying. If you drive that whole route, you go up to Los Gatos. I've now skipped a whole bunch, but you go up to San Francisco. It is one of the most magnificent, beautiful drives, and everyone should do it at least once. The drive, not getting on a plane and going, and it's going to take you 6 to 8 hours to do. And if you stop along the way, it's going to take even longer. But I've done that more than once with friends, I've done it myself, which is a really funny thing because I've stayed at hotels all along the way up at Carmel and whatever because I'm too scared to drive at night. But it is a magnificent view. It is breathtaking and gorgeous and just part of what I think is the essence of what I love about California. That's not to say that the East Coast or anything in between of California, right? There are beautiful other parts. I'm just giving you that first vibrant thing that I love about California, which is not just saying the weather. It's saying there is a shine on this part of the country that I can't explain fully or well because I don't have the verbiage or the perfect articulation. But I'm telling you, it feels beautiful to be here when the sun hits your skin and you're looking out at that ocean, or you're just taking that nice breath and being like, wow, this is a little close to heaven for me. That's how I felt and still feel, especially because of where I grew up and how I grew up. To me, this was just liberating. I think the other thing that hits me about California that I love is its people. And I don't want to just talk about the diversity because that matters, but I would never not live in a place that there weren't a lot of different cultures because I need that energy so much. And also because I am not white, it is much more comfortable for me to live in a place where there is a lot of diversity. And I'm only bringing that up because, I remember once somebody was like, well, why wouldn't you move to like Memphis or, Atlanta? And those are lovely places. I remember being in Memphis, Tennessee, and I've been there twice. And I just remember thinking like, I could never live here because it's not my vibe. But in talking about Memphis, I will say this. I think that's the thing, right? It's a vibe. New York has its own vibe too. And along with like Memphis, Tennessee and, Texas, I could never live in New York. And my friends who are born and raised in New York or, who live in New York now understand that, I'm just not a New Yorker. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. I could never be a New Yorker. But it's not just that. On like the real, it's not my kind of town. It's too fast for me. It's too quick. And everybody's like on top of each other as far as like living space. And what I love about California is that there's a real honest kind of calmness to California. We are just the type of people that we do the work we need to do but it's also like a really morning place to be. That's how I look at it. New York to me is like a nighttime, vibey kind of place. And to me, California has always seemed to be the most perfect place for me because I'm such a morning person. So you get up early, you do morning things like running, rollerblading, surfing, skiing. You do these things that make you get up in the morning. You go hiking in the morning, you go kayaking, you kind of do all these things that are outdoorsy. You do them early in the day. And one of the things I thought was funny about California when I got out here is because I was still looking for, places to go clubbing at night. And it was so not the right place. Now that may have changed. I've been here 30 years now, right? So I don't want to get people who are like, oh, you just don't know where they are. I knew where a lot of them were, but it's not the same as New York. It'll never be the same as New York or even Boston when it comes to kind of this nightlife kind of thing, because what I think California brings to the table that I've not seen anywhere else is the ability to literally, and I've done this because I used to hang out with a bunch of athletes back in the day. And, we'd get up in the morning and we'd head to Malibu and we'd go kayaking. And we'd go kayaking for an hour or so. We'd go then have breakfast. We'd then go hiking. We'd go to Point Magoo and we'd go hiking, and we'd do like a 7.2-mile hike. And it was just magnificent and beautiful. And then we'd come down and we would do, like a early dinner, and they would be talking about driving up so they can go skiing in the morning. And the thing about California is you can actually do all of that. You can go surfing in the morning or kayaking in the morning, and you can go skiing that afternoon because everything is here. I'm not a big snow person. Everybody knows that my 4 years in Vermont was more than enough. Like I never want to see snow again. But if you go up to Big Bear, which I've been plenty of times, you understand how versatile and beautiful this place is when it comes to being able to do all these things. But my point is this is, to me, it's also perfect because I love being a morning person. I am a morning person, and I love being able to do all these things all the time. The other part that I absolutely love, of course, is that Hollywood is made here. And let me be very specific. But what I mean by that is it's not that you have to work in the industry, because even though I love this town and I have done a few movies and I've done theater and I've been, I worked for big time people who were in the industry from the management point of view, or even celebrities or whatever. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you're here and let's say you just work at an insurance company, or you work at a bar, or you work in the medical field. You're driving to work and it is absolutely normal to see a camera crew or a whole kind of line of these, trucks and wagons and whatever, because they're shooting a film. And it just is one of the things that I get so happy about whenever I see it. By the way, it always messes up traffic if it's not cordoned off correctly. And I still feel joy in it because I love that they're filming something here, or that, that filming is happening. And then, of course, I get a little jealous because I'm like, why am I not filming? But there is just something in that energy that I love. And we all go about our business no matter what. So like, I remember I used to go this one, trail all the time. And I'd start at this place called the golf course, or we call it the golf course, whatever, because you go outside of the golf course. It's kind of fenced off and you can walk around or run around the entire golf course here in Brentwood. And, 9 times out of 10, depending on the time of day or year, you would absolutely see all the trailers out there because they're always using some certain part of that area to film. Or I don't know, maybe it was a series that went for a long time. I have no idea because I never asked, but I always loved just walking by all of those trailers and just imagining what they could possibly be filming. And so I don't know about other people in industries that they love or are a part of or not, or wish they were. Like maybe this happens to people who work near NASA. That's the only way I can think about it. Like if you live in Florida and you've always loved NASA and, you're around the whatever that would be called jet propulsion, whatever thingamajiggy. Like maybe you get that excited too. And maybe I'm just crazy, but these are the things that I love about California. People here are also incredibly kind and lovely. Although in the beginning, I realized like, wow, this isn't like my neighborhood, because people will live next to each other for like 30 years and not know who each other is neighbor wise, which is really not my style. You can already tell. I move into a place, I'm knocking on everybody's door so that they know I just moved in. You know what I mean? So, and that to them is always very bizarre because it's not that kind of town. I always explain to people that one of the reasons why there isn't a sense of community in the way that I saw it as I was growing up is because we don't really have a transit bus system that everyone takes. And so when you're growing up and you take the bus every day or the train, or you have to wait at the subway, which is like in New York, there is a sense of community because you see the same people getting on the bus every day. You might say good morning, you might whatever, but here people use their cars all the time to go everywhere is what I'm saying. That may seem like a bad thing. To me, it's adjustable, right? You make the community, you are in charge of making your own community. So I always, whatever apartment I'm moving into or whatever neighborhood I'm moving into, I do go in and say hi to people. But what I do love, unlike how I grew up, as I explained to people the other day, I love that there's also a sense of privacy. We don't bother each other unless we necessarily have to, like in an emergency or something like that. People do keep to themselves. People do understand personal space here. And so I kind of like that too. It's a little bit different for me, but I really do love it. I was telling Beata and Sebastian just last night or yesterday, I think, that one of the things that was interesting for me growing up is all the gossip. Right? There was, we used to call the ladies at the end of the street ABC, NBC, and CBS because you could not walk by there without hearing some kind of news on whoever was happening. Even if nothing was happening, they had the scoop on, who was getting divorced, who's cheating on who's dating who. They always knew something. So this is a little bit different, and I love it because Californians have a sense of privacy, but are also very neighborly and will help when necessary. And, I kind of forced myself on my neighbors so they all know who I is. So I ain't worried about that. I think something else that's really important that matters to me is that the sense of being healthy out here matters. And one of the things I did when I first came out here, I was going to do it anyways, but I quit smoking. So I used to smoke since the age of 12 till the age, I think, of 26, I think I was when I finally quit. When I moved out here, it was so easy to do, not only because I felt like I didn't know anybody, so I didn't have anybody to smoke with because that was kind of, I guess, my thing. But I also you want to try to be as healthy as possible out here because everybody out here is doing something. I'm not saying everybody's out here being athletic or whatever, but again, it's that kind of town where you are going to spend a lot of time near or at the beach or wanting to go to the beach. Or you just have the sense, I don't know how to explain it. There's like an aura about eating healthy or being healthy. And look, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying everybody in LA. I'm saying for me and my experience, that's what I love about things out here, and I love that people want to look their best. And I don't always think it's a bad thing. Like we get into this thing where we have all this hate for women or men who get Botox or plastic surgery or whatever. And I've already had these conversations with people and that there's all this pressure, blah, blah, blah. There's also just the sense that you want to look your best all the time. Now, whatever we have done as a society to make little girls and young women think that they're not beautiful if they're not size X or have this kind of hair or teeth or whatever, that's a whole other conversation. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about out here is a sense of wanting to be your best, look your best. I think there's something beautiful and positive about that, that too. And so there's this healthy vibe. Like, I don't know any parts of where I've lived in Los Angeles where you don't run into somebody who's running or somebody who's doing something athletic, something that takes a lot of energy. And that is also true, I'm sure, in a lot of places, but because we're really an outdoor kind of place, people aren't only necessarily working out in gyms, right? You see them everywhere. So I love that part of it too. I love the sense of health. And I know for me personally, I am the healthiest I've ever been when I moved out here. And I'll say this too. I had a lot of allergies when I lived on the East Coast. I used to get allergy shots every month, especially when I lived in Boston. And what I realized is when I moved out here, because of the different foliage, I don't need those shots anymore. I haven't needed them since I moved here. And when I asked doctors about it, and when I've had scratch tests to make sure, the truth is foliage matters where you live regarding your reaction body-wise. And I don't know the science behind it or whatever, but that kind of makes sense. So there's that too. I will say this again. I don't understand the vitriol and the hate that people have, even people who have lived here and have moved. I don't understand the amount of pain and anger that you could have as a human being, that you think it's appropriate to put that on people who are suffering from the fires during a natural disaster. And people want to blame everything on social media, but we are social media. We are social media. And the fact that people feel really comfortable or incensed enough to want to bring down people who live in a state that is in a disaster is quite telling and quite remarkable. And I always want to see the best in who we are or who we can be. But I have to say, I've learned a lot during this tragedy of how horrible a lot of people are. And I understand that people have issues with governments and leaders and that we should fight back. But that's not what I'm talking about. You all know what I'm talking about. People who are hating on celebrities because they've lost their homes. And I'll say this till I'm blue in the face. The idea that you are upset that we care about celebrities is mind-boggling. I do care about, Dick Van Dyke. I do care about Anthony Hopkins. I care about Milo. I don't know how to say his last name, but the star from This Is Us. I care about all of these people. I care about so many of the people who have lost their homes here because they're human beings just like anyone else. Their income level, their status in the country, their ability to have an Oscar or not is not indicative of whether or not they are a good and decent human being. I had to intervene in a comment section of somebody dissing Anthony Hopkins and remind people that he is 87 years old and that he just lost his home and that his accolades and everything that he has gotten, he has worked for. We all want to be able to say that we are successful human beings. So why you would bring people down because they are successful is ridiculous to me. It says more about you than it does about them in every way, shape, or form. And I will tell you, as someone who has worked for and continues to work for people of wealth, of all different types of wealth, I will tell you this as an absolute truth. Having money does not make you a bad person, and it sure as hell does not make you a good person. And I know just as many horrible poor people as I do good poor people. And it doesn't matter to me if you have lost everything in a place that you have lived for a very long time, and you have lost those memories, and you have lost your photo albums, and you have lost your furniture. You've lost whatever it is. You've lost just your time in the place that you love. I am so sorry. I am so sorry that this has happened. And my compassion and my empathy doesn't stop at your income level. And I wish people would understand that the more you hate on people who have stuff, the more you do not understand who people are. And by the way, you saying, I care for the poor people who have nothing, I don't care about the rich people. Again, nobody wants your fake empathy. Nobody wants your conditional love, your condition. Like if you have X amount if you only make $30,000 a year, I feel for you. But if you've been accomplished and have done well in your life, I do not feel anything for you and I wish you harm. That says more about who you are. You are a bad person. You are the person that I hope feels the amount of pain that you are inducing on comment sections and in your verbiage every single day to people who have just lost everything. And I have no problem saying I will deal with the good Lord when I die. But I hope you feel that tenfold, your hatred and the harm that you are causing people who are reading those horrible comments in the time of pain and suffering. I am so tired of trying to be the goody two-shoes and wish well on everyone. I really have turned a corner in my life where I'm like, if you're a bad person, I wish you hell. I really do. I will not do anything because I am not that person, but I am so sick and tired of trying to be above the fray all the time. And as much as I love Michelle Obama, the good Lord knows I do, and I wanted to believe, and to a certain extent, I do believe that when they go low, we go high. But there's a part of me that's like, you know what? I'm going to go middle. I'm just saying, if you are this hurtful of a human being, you are showing me who you are. It is really easy to be a good and decent person when things are good. It is so easy to be generous and kind and loving and helpful when everything is okay in the world. But who are you when things are bad? Who are you when you have been hurt or lost everything or see pain and suffering? Who are you in that moment is what I want to see. It is really, really more telling to me who people are when things are hard and difficult. That's where you shine as a human being. That's where you have the ability to show me the kind of person you are. Can you love anyway? Can you help anyway? Can you be a force of good and support and love anyway? And I am so happy to report that more people than not are the most beautiful spirits I have ever seen during those hard moments, and they are shining right now. Those beautiful people, all the beautiful people who have been so helpful and kind and have been doing the volunteers. I went to the Westwood Recreational Center as one of the first places I went to because I didn't know what to do after I left work that morning, and I had everything in my car. And the people there who had left, some of the volunteers there were from like Pasadena or wherever they had come in, and because I heard some of them talking, unaware that their own homes were about to be engulfed in these flames or in danger possibly or whatever, had come all the way from Pasadena, which is not an easy or short drive, to my area to help and volunteer. And I kept thinking to myself, see, that is California. That is the best of humanity. All of the first responders, all the people who have donated so much money and food and clothing. It has been such a remarkable thing to see people, my neighbors, checking in on each other, people making sure they're okay, text messaging and emailing. I mean, that is the beauty of who we are when we care about each other. And with that said, I want to give a shout out to firemen. People know I love firemen anyway, but firemen have always had, this is not new, supportlafd.org. It is their nonprofit organization. It's where I bought t-shirts for me and Cynthia and Juan. Because we love the show 911, I wanted to support our fire department here in Los Angeles. And they have t-shirts in there, but they also have wish lists. They also have things that the individual firemen need. And before I get any messages, I'm going to just delete them, by the way, about how you shouldn't have to help or whatever, because stop. This isn't about that right now. We can have conversations somewhere else about what needs to be changed or supported for our first responders or whatever. That's not what this is about. For right now, if you want to support the Los Angeles Fire Department, you go to supportlafd.org, and they have so many things there. They also have a list of places that you can help for the California fires and or support them individually. Please go and do your best to help and support California, but also the LAFD. They are doing a remarkable job. And also, check on your own neighbors, check on your own friends. Make sure that everyone is okay if you have friends in California. But I mean, even in your own neighborhoods, wherever you are, whether you're in Arkansas or wherever, Texas or wherever it is, Mississippi, I don't care where it is. If you have a moment to make a connection that you've never made before, I would say please do it, because I'm telling you, that's been my saving grace. The love that I have gotten from the people I know in my neighborhoods and in my life, I am so grateful for. So I want to say thank you to that. So again, I am always grateful for the people that listen to my podcast and listen to our live streams and just are so supportive of allaboutthejoy.com. I almost forgot the name of my own company there. But I'm a little exhausted, so I'm sorry. But I just wanted to say thank you again to everyone who's been so supportive. And we will be back on Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. As always, we are so grateful. Check out allaboutthejoy.com and follow us everywhere. The links are there. We really do need more support on YouTube. So if you can do that, that'd be great. But regardless, just love you all for checking in, and we'll see you again next week. Thank you and goodbye. And I'm just so grateful. Bye, everyone. Thanks for stopping by All About the Joy. Be better and stay beautiful, folks. Have a sweet day.